Yeah, I can solve a Rubik's Cube even with my elbows if I really wanted to.
Welcome to the Onstage Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Robert. So I'm so glad that you were able to take this time to join us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Everyone, there's a little bit of lag. Everyone, this is Sydney Weaver. She's 23. I believe that's how old you are now, I believe, right? You're 23?
I'm 24 now. Close.
Edit. Sydney Weaver is 24-year-old, 9-time gold cuber. I guess 9-time gold medalist. She's what she called a professional speed cuber. And have you ever seen her solve a Rubik's Cube? It's incredible. She also loves sharing mathematics with people around the world of all ages, typically using Rubik's Cube as an interesting medium. Before we start, I want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Where did you get the SirWaffle from?
So that's always such a long story. I used to get tired of explaining it, so I just said that it's because it's my initials. But Sir Waffle came from the fact that I used to play this game online when I was a kid that would put Sir in front of whatever name you chose. And, I was like a 10-year-old. I thought this was hysterical. So I named myself Hank, and I was Sir Hank, and it's because of a TV show character I liked. And this was a little knight jousting game, so it just seemed funny. But then I went to join a chess website that was for kids only, and it wouldn't let you put a real name in your username, regardless of whether or not actually your name. So I had to pick something else, but I thought the Sir part was still kind of funny. So I just went with Sir Waffle. And this kind of became my go-to username for a lot of websites. And a little bit after I discovered the cube, when I was 14, I joined a speed cubing website, and I picked the name Sir Waffle, not thinking that the cube would consume my entire life. And it's just kind of stuck with me. So whenever I meet cubers at Rubik's Cube competitions, they say, "Hey, Waffle." They just call me Waffle, and that's what I go as. And the name has stuck with me for so long. I'm just not going to get rid of it. And it's, again, a long story, but it's fun. Why not? It makes it more memorable. But
So who calls you Sydney? Your parents?
no, actually, my family calls me a nickname of Nini.
Oh.
Yeah, my brother, when I was born, couldn't pronounce Sydney, so he decided, oh, Nini, and that's just stuck with me my whole life. So, not many people actually call me Sydney.
Well, I'm going to call you Sir Waffle. How's that?
Go for it, and you can say waffle for short if you don't feel like adding the
How
Sir
about
part.
Waffy? Waffler. Waffler. Muffler. Don't worry, we can edit this out. That's awesome. Yes, so as I said, I bought some Rubik's Cube. We're going to open those. I'm going to figure out how to open those. Yeah, basically, I want to ask, I've actually had Rubik's Cube growing up. I actually had a really small one, and it was the most tiniest Rubik's Cube, and you could actually solve it like this. And one day it broke in pieces, and I figured out how to put the thing together. And when I went to the store to buy a new one, I saw all these people lined up with their Rubik's Cubes in pieces. And my thought was, you can put that thing together, you know. Hey, you know how I solved my Rubik's Cubes?
You peeled the stickers off.
How did you know? That's exactly what I did. Wow. Not everyone knows that. Wow, you figured that out, eh?
It's the mentalism. No, that's what everyone says. There's three things you hear as a speed cuber. You either hear, "I used to peel the stickers off," "I used to take it apart," or "my cousin's brother's nephew, friend could solve that thing in like 4 seconds." You know, it's always a friend of a friend of a friend's cousin.
SirWaffle, love it. I see you got a lot of interesting shapes of Rubik's cubes beside you. Did you want to explain each one?
Well, to be frank, some of them I actually don't know what they are because a couple months ago, I guess actually last year now, someone was kind enough and sent me a whole bunch of puzzles. So I just went with some that look nice, but I can say like this one right here is a Mega Minx, which is one of my best puzzles. I got third place in it at a national competition. And then like these ones right here are called cross cubes. This is a barrel cube, but then the other ones, the names are slipping my mind. I just thought it would look cool to have a stack here.
Can you give us a backstory of who you are and how did you get started?
Yeah, so as already mentioned, my name is Sydney Weaver, aka SirWaffle. I'm 24 years old, and I have been solving the Rubik's Cube for the past 10 years. How I got into it was I'd gotten a Rubik's Cube in my Christmas stocking in 2011, and I had zero interest in it. But come the summer of the next year, I was bored out of my mind, and I had a computer. And I thought, well, what if I were to look up how to solve this thing? And I found a few videos which I didn't really mesh with, but then I found a written tutorial on the Rubik's website, and that clicked with me. No pun intended, because cubes click. And I became obsessed from there. After I solved it for the first time, I wanted to do it faster and faster. But then as for actually teaching the Rubik's Cube, which is what I do primarily now with a little bit of performance, I hosted a workshop at a local library, and that just showed me I'd rather teach others the skill than just be a show off.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm so glad. Like I remember I would basically use this one. No, not this one. This one. This is the original Erno Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, definitely start with the classic Rubik's Cube. The 4x4, or also called the Rubik's Revenge, can be just a little bit too much to handle for a beginner. So definitely start with the classic.
Might as well get one so I can figure. Wow. It's been a long time since I held one of these. And you've inspired me to buy 2 of them. So we're going to do something with that. I want to show people a video that, if you don't mind, of you solving the Rubik's Cube with your feet. This is incredible. I was just blown away when I saw this.
There's a little bit of a delay. I can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, good. So I'm looking at your feet here, and I'm realizing that. Do you feel a lot of pain when you're doing this?
It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but for the most part, you really shouldn't strain yourself to do it. You just hold it down with one foot, typically the left foot, and then you just kind of use your big toe in that surrounding area on your right foot to make turns. And that typically reduces any discomfort.
How many people are actually watching you? I noticed a few people were rooting you on.
I think that there was about 20 people at this workshop. It was a nice outdoor kids event where we explored all different kinds of Rubik's Cubes, and they asked to see the feet solved, and someone started filming it.
Have you actually, did they know that you could solve the Rubik's Cube with your feet? Or did you mention to them, I can actually solve the Rubik's Cube with my feet, and then they put you through this dare? Let's see if you can do that. Do they know all about This is like quite a feat. Pardon the pun. When you were looking at that, what were you looking at? See if your mathematics were correct? Like, what if you made a mistake?
So if I make a mistake, in feat solving in particular, I try my absolute best to reverse it due to how long it takes to do moves. But if I can't, then I just kind of restart from the nearest point to the end that I can.
Is there a world record for feat cubing?
So, feat solving used to be an official event. People would compete in it, but a couple of years ago, it got removed. So, there's no longer a record. It's only a former record.
There's actually a record for feat cubing? Really?
Yeah, so, it used to. The World Cube Association used to sanction it.
So, what's your record now for this?
Probably my best feat solve is about 35 seconds. That would be at home, and in competition, I would guess maybe a minute and 10 seconds. I haven't done it in years in competition, so I don't know.
So how old were you here?
We're almost there. I got one more set of moves to do. This was a couple of years ago, so I was probably 20 or 21, I think.
Okay, so you can solve the Rubik's Cube with your feet. You said you can solve the Rubik's Cube with your elbows, which I don't know how you can do that without finger dexterity. Like for instance, if I take this Rubik's Cube and I mix it up, like how far do I have to mix it up in order to be doing it with my feet, and how long will it take me to do it with my feet? Like if mixing it up like this, could you look at it and mathematically figure out how to solve it?
So when you're solving it for speed solving, you're only looking at one piece at a time. And so what you'd be doing is maybe planning how to solve the first 4 pieces. And while you're solving those, then maybe the next 2 and so on. So I couldn't like look at that right now and say, oh, you need to do these moves. I would need to, I could tell you to do, a couple to solve a few pieces, but not the whole thing. But any Rubik's Cube can be solved in 20 moves or fewer. Now, most humans can't figure that out, but in reality, no cube is actually that far away. So even if you turn it 1,000,000 times, it's still only ever 20 moves away.
Okay, so if I mix this up, if I take 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to mix this up, can you tell by how many times a person has mixed it up, how long it takes to solve? Is it the colors?
No, so you're just looking like on your cube right there, I'd be looking at some of the white pieces, some of these white edge pieces, because the first step to solving a cube is to make something that looks like this, just kind of a cross. So that's what I'd be trying to identify is where those 4 pieces are. So it wouldn't matter to me how much you mixed up everything. I would just still locate these 4 pieces. So you could mix it up for the next 24 hours if you wanted to. It wouldn't matter.
So, okay. What makes your interesting mathematical, like turning this one into the card? So you have like the 2 and then we have that video we'll show people, but actually it was, I believe it was this.
No, it was actually the 7x7 cube that I done that with. So this is 7 layers by 7 layers.
Wow. Okay.
And the methodology behind doing that is using something called commutators.
Yeah.
To be able to adjust pieces. And although it sounds very mathematical, it really isn't. It's just a matter of knowing how the pieces interact with one another and doing it very quickly.
I'm going to lay in a little bit of secret here. I'm a magician, and I did a lot of card tricks, and I know how to force cards. But to put the card in an actual cube, that would have been a feat that I could not do. How long did it take you to learn that one?
So I knew how to put pictures on a cube. I'd say probably for the past 6 or 7 years or so. I just had this idea, and it was shortly before the deadline to audition for season 8 of Penn and Teller's Full House. I thought, man, wouldn't it be awesome if I could take a card, not just any card, not just a specific card, not a forced one, but any card, and put it onto a Rubik's cube. So I started practicing this, and initially I had 2 cubes, a 7x7 like this, and a 6x6, which I won't bother grabbing. And I was able to put 2 pictures on them to form the card, and it took forever. I could do it, but it took several minutes. And I did this trick in a virtual open mic, and I submitted it to the producers anyways, even though it wasn't that good. But once I knew I was going to be on the show, I just kept practicing it and doing it on a single cube until I could do it in about 50 seconds on average. So it wasn't a matter of how long did it take to learn. It's a matter of how long did it take to refine. And I was practicing that routine maybe 50 times a day leading up to going on to Las Vegas.
Wow, that's a feat. Now, we know that Erno Rubik is a Hungarian inventor, and I'm half Hungarian, so that's why I like the Rubik's Cube when I was growing up. And he's also an architect and a professor of architecture.
Yep.
He's actually, I thought he was dead, but he's 77 years old right now. And he's not only the inventor of Rubik's Cube, but Rubik's Magic Master Edition, Rubik's Snake. I guess he's the one that actually came up with that one you have there, the dodecahedron type.
No. Shape. So the inventor of that was someone called Efforts. And he actually, years before Erno Rubik came up with the regular Rubik's Cube, he had a concept for the Pyraminx, which uses the same basic mechanism that the Rubik's Cube does, except instead of being in a cube form, it's in this pyramid shape. And after the cube became popular was when Mepferts decided, I want to start making all these other puzzles, and the Rubik's company actually bought several of the puzzles to market as their own. Because that Rubik's name is what sold.
Not bad for any inventor who can come up with a puzzle like this. It allows you just to turn it, and then basically something like this. I take all the stickers off and put it back to. But I did once do it where I took the stickers off and made one side one color. And I'm like, well, now I have. As a good way to solve this would be I'm going to try to get all blue, and then what you do is you say, I'm going to now get all green, or do you have to do it in a way like, what's the magic mathematical formula on how to put this?
So the basic method, and this doesn't require any math. It's a huge misconception that you need math to solve the Rubik's Cube, but you can learn a lot of fascinating concepts using the Rubik's Cube. So, get it out of your head that you need to be a mathematician. But basically, to start, is what you want to do is you want to solve these 4 pieces. And this forms a cross. And this is something that's very intuitive. And I want you to notice how each one of these pieces, it matches up with the center. So this is white and this is orange. This is blue and this is white. And it matches all along. And this is an intuitive step. Just about everybody can do this, where you're just focusing on one white piece at a time and solving it. Then after you do that, you want to solve the white corners. And it would look something like this. Now, most people think now at this point that you should immediately try to solve like the green face or the red face, but that's where most people make the mistake. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to solve this middle layer. So if we consider this our first layer, then this would be our second layer, this row right here that I'm turning. And after we were to do that, we would have only the top remaining.
Oh, wow.
So naturally, now we're going to solve the last layer. And for most people, at least my students that I teach, they can solve the Rubik's Cube using about 6 very simple algorithms. An algorithm is just a fancy word for a set of moves, and it's just about knowing when to use them.
Well, I've seen you solve a Rubik's Cube with one hand, but at the moment, I don't know if I have the dexterity to be able to go throw it on the table like here.
And somebody want to get a timer ready? It's a lot of fun to time.
I know the volume is a little down, but
that's okay.
But I see all the.
All right. So does everybody agree that these are as random as they can be?
And you actually solve one with your hand, with one hand, I think.
Speed solve. So I'm going to be solving as quickly as possible using 2 hands. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Anybody ready with
But if
time?
I'm
All right. Yeah, so to solve a cube one-handed, the majority of people use their left hand, and what you do is you would hold it with your middle finger on this back center and your thumb on the front center, and then that would leave your pinky finger and your index finger free to turn, and would minimize any discomfort.
Sydney, I know you can do better than
I can do a little bit
That's
better.
probably
So for
why,
this next one, I'm going to be solving
like when it comes to music,
so only using
especially
my
the
right
piano,
hand. Does anybody have a timer
like
ready?
I sent you that video.
All right.
It's incredible how. Did you take a look at that video? Look.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I know I should have, but I didn't.
It's fine, but look at this. But you got such small hands. How are you doing that? How are you doing that
A
with
lot
small
of
hands?
practice. So I actually spent a lot of time getting better at one-handed solving. For a particular reason, it was because another speed cuber annoyed me because I kept beating them in two-handed races. So they had bigger hands and thought, oh, we'll do it one-handed, I'll always win. So I spent months practicing just to beat them.
Is there nothing you can't do? Like, isn't there a really difficult, unsolvable cube that you can't do? Or can you basically solve them all?
Well, given enough time, I could certainly solve any puzzle I wanted to, I think. There are a few that have definitely given me more challenges than others. For example, the Pyraminx crystal is a puzzle that gave me a bit of trouble. The impossible Rubik's Cube gave me trouble, but if I try hard enough, I can use my algorithms to solve any puzzle.
I want to talk about that algorithm after this little video. This is amazing because you're actually getting people to take a Rubik's Cube, mix it up, and then you solve it in a matter of, I don't know, a couple minutes or so. And then someone mentioned, what was the, you said that there was a Rubik's Cube, the world records or something you said was 23 seconds or 24 seconds?
No, the world record for solving the Rubik's Cube
3.7 seconds.
3.47 seconds.
3.47 seconds.
3.47. Okay. Yeah.
47.
All right, that all makes sense.
Look at that.
All right, so this one, as I said, is called the
Look at SirWaffle, everyone. Wow.
About a minute solve, but so you're not bored. Feel free to ask me questions one at a time about.
Okay, I'm going to ask.
I can multitask, and that makes it a little bit more impressive. So
I know
but anybody have any questions?
that the ponytail provides little weight, and I know some people have hair that go down actually past their shoulders. It because it pulls down on the, it kind of causes a little bit of an issue. Did that give you a problem with solving, or is it? Yeah,
so I never wear my hair down my shoulders when I'm solving. If I were to show you now,
When did you start?
it would get stuck in my cube. I already get hair in my Rubik's Cube when I'm solving it, but if I intentionally had my hair down, it would be horrible. So I
that's why
always have it pulled back when
that's
I'm
why you have in a
solving.
ponytail, because you didn't want it to be caught in the. Okay, that makes sense.
World record is.
Yes, it would be very uncomfortable and it would make my cube very sluggish.
Where's home for you?
South Carolina.
This is excellent. I'm so happy that you're on the podcast. I wanted to ask you so many questions about how
I work both independently and with
ridiculously intelligent you are. This is awesome. Look at this.
Look at that. Oh, and that was a minute 50.
That is incredible. Can you tell me how mathematics fit into solving a cube? And when you teach mathematics, are you actually teaching the students to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube? How does that work?
So you could, in theory, use certain mathematical concepts to solve a cube. Something called commutators, which is using combinations of moves to move small groups of pieces. And I've encountered a few mathematicians who have tried to use this. And I will say the ones that I've met, it doesn't usually work out because you need to use some of your regular intuition rather than this math stuff. But what the cube can do is it can teach you these challenging concepts. The cube, when you look at it mathematically, is actually broken into smaller groups called subgroups. And you can use it to explore group theory. So if I look at like these edge pieces right here, that's one group, the ones with 2 colors on them. Then the corner pieces, the ones with 3 colors, that's another group. And then the center pieces. We can use this to calculate the permutations, which means how many positions the cube can be in. We can use it to see how many times you have to repeat an algorithm over and over to solve the cube. So if you start with a solved cube and you do the same moves over and over again, like just keep going, you will eventually solve it. But you have to start from a solved cube. So those are just a couple of the things that you can explore. But really, to me, it feels endless because you can use the cube as a great analogy for any of it.
Well, how does your magic compare with Steven Brundage? I asked you that question.
As far as I know, Steven can, in fact, solve a Rubik's Cube normally in maybe about a minute or two. But what is the huge difference is I am taking real cubing concepts, real cubing theory, and putting it into magic, like adding a little bit of magic, where he's doing the opposite. He's taking a lot of magic theory and adding a little bit of cubing theory. So that's, in my opinion, what makes my Rubik's Cube magic really stand out is the addition of just a tiny bit of magic. And like I said, adding 10 years of Rubik's Cube. Whereas most people, they might have 10 years of magic, but no years of Rubik's Cube. And it's funny, I had actually encountered Rubik's Cubes earlier in life. I had just never taken the time to learn them. Like I remember being in the 2nd grade, there was a Rubik's Cube there, but I never actually solved it. And a couple years later, I had like a keychain Rubik's Cube, but it seemed like it was trying to tell me you need to learn. And it wasn't until I had, my own Rubik's Cube and my own computer that I finally decided to. So there was no rhyme or reason behind it other than boredom.
Is the same amount of time to solve this one and this one, or is there a different time that you need for this one? Because I noticed you got the big one there that you did for the Fool Us. Okay, let's say
yes.
I give you this one, and the one you used in Fool Us. Could you solve this one, and this one in the same time?
No.
Or is it different because of how many there are?
Oh, it's different because of how many layers there are. The regular Rubik's Cube takes me about 10 seconds on average, and the 4x4 cube takes me about 40 seconds on average. So it starts to climb up just a little bit by a little bit based on the size of the cube. The 5x5 cube maybe takes me 1 minute and 10 seconds. The 6x6 jumps up even more to about 2 minutes, and then the 7x7 to about 3 minutes. Now, anything beyond that, I'm a lot slower, if I'm being honest. I could be faster, and most people are, but I'm not.
Can you do this? Solve this hand and this hand at the same time?
I can't. I can turn in both hands at the same time, but I'm not doing anything productive if I do this. It's just me mindlessly turning. So, yeah, I can't really do that. Oops. Well, this cube's deciding to fall apart.
So what hand do you think is that you use for the quicker hand solving? The left or the
So
right?
for one-handed solving, my right hand is definitely significantly faster. Last year, I accidentally injured my right hand. I got a very, very deep cut, so I couldn't really use it, and I trained my left hand. But I would say it takes me about 17 seconds to solve one-handed with my right hand, and maybe about 25 to use my left hand. So big difference, definitely noticeable.
Which is the most difficult one there you have?
Of these ones right here, I guess this one right here, which is called an axis cube, I'd say it's the most difficult just because it functions the same way as a regular Rubik's cube, but I want you to look here how these pieces are cut. It kind of can drive your head a little bit crazy because if I mix this up a bit, you see, that's headache inducing. So this to me, of these right here, this would be the one that I would be the most frustrated solving. The rest of them are pretty trivial.
So you're going to be able to solve any Rubik's Cube, then what?
So there are certainly other kinds of puzzles I like. Like I love recreational math puzzles, which is usually you're proposed a riddle and you sometimes use small objects like, pennies and toothpicks and that sort of thing. But no, it's not as though I'd ever find an endpoint. I still love exploring new puzzles myself, but right now my main focus is teaching others. Which I feel like, considering how many people there are in the world, it's going to keep me busy for a while. Immediately jumps to my mind. But the main thing is abstract algebra, that you could use the cube to teach, but you could use it as an analogy for anything if you tried hard enough.
But how can I use algebra for this?
Abstract algebra.
Abstract algebra, okay.
Yeah. It's looking about how the pieces interact with each other. So if you're looking at if you wanted to calculate the permutations, you'd look at this one. There are 8 corners and it can be in 3 possible positions. So we're going to say that's 8 to the power of 3 because, it can be in 3 different positions and it's all 8 of them. And then it can be in one of these 8 spots, so that would be 8 factorial. Are you familiar with factorials?
Yeah.
Okay, so then would be one way that you could use it to, start doing that.
And you figured it out to solve a Rubik's Cube easy. If I turn this back and forth for a whole hour, 20,000 times, and then took the stickers off and put them back properly, would that screw up the algorithm, or can it still be solved?
No, as long as they were put back in the right position, it'd be just fine. If you accidentally took a piece and flipped it over like that, then it would be unsolvable.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So I took this piece out and put it upside down. You can't solve it because there's billions and billions of combinations.
Yeah, so there's 43 quintillion. So the reason it matters is, and the way I explain it to people, is basically for every action on the cube, you need an equal and opposite reaction. Now, obviously that's physics, but it's still a fun way to compare. So if I take this Rubik's Cube right here, I flipped these 2 edges. So in order to flip one of them, another one had to be flipped. So if I were to take this out manually and flip it, no matter what I do, I could turn for 1,000 years, it would still remain that way. A fun trick I've done with people in person is they will take my Rubik's Cube and they'll take it apart and they'll, flip one piece, twist another one, and switch some around. And without doing any turns on it, I can tell you exactly what they did.
Seriously? Wow.
It takes a few minutes, but I can.
So they can't really prank you then, eh?
No. So Tiago, if you're watching this, I'm mentioning you because
wow. Wouldn't that be a good joke, eh? If you just remove one and turn it over and say, here, solve it. But what if they do solve it? Is that like what? That's impossible moment.
It wouldn't be possible. I feel like that would actually be a great magic trick to do on speedcubers who would know it shouldn't be possible. But otherwise, yeah, not really.
How do you think Steve Brundage did that, where he took a cube, he mixed it up, put it in a bag, and he took it out and it was solved? How do you think he did that trick?
He could have used any number of methods. There is a scramble that is, it looks like you're doing a lot of turns. Like, I'm not doing it exactly here, but it looks like you're mixing it up so much. But really, it's only 4 turns away. So a lot of people, if they do that trick as they're putting it into the bag, they're
using their one hand to solve it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't figure that one out. Wow. We're glad we have you here. That's awesome. So what cube do you think would be better for me to learn? If I solve this one and get down to a point like maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, would I be able to take this one and do it automatically, or would I have to learn it on this one as well? Like, do you have to learn that once? Is it not like one cube fits all? If you have one, you solve one cube, doesn't mean this cube will be easy to do.
Yeah. So once you learn how to do the 3x3 and the 4x4, then any of the the regular cubes, like the 6x6, 7x7, all those you would know how to solve. It would take you longer, but those are kind of like the fundamentals that you're going to learn. So it's always best start with the 3x3 and then move on to the 4x4, because the 4x4, what you want to do is you want to reduce it into a 3x3. So I want you to look at how I'm going to start by solving these centerpieces. And after I do that, then I want to work to pair up more pieces, the edge pieces, and it will turn into a 3x3 cube. So then
So if I wanted to just turn all this blue, could I turn all this red, all this white, all this orange, and all this green? Is that how it would be done as well? I'm just going to solve the orange. Now I'm going to solve the green. Is that a good way to do it?
No. So as I had mentioned earlier, the best approach is to do it layer by layer. So you start off by solving one face, and then it would look like that, and then you'd solve this middle layer. So you're not solving any in particular face, you're just solving the middle. So I'll show you what that looks like.
What do you mean the middle?
This right here, this middle strip. So do you see how this white is solved?
Yeah.
If we hold it so it's facing down and we count this as one layer, this entire layer is solved. You see that? Now, if we go up a layer, we see this middle layer, that is all solved.
And then you just move up to the top, go from the
that?
bottom to the top. So what I would do is I would make sure all this is white, all this is red, all this is green, and then solve the top here. And then, so that's the secret, is it? Wow. But you just say there's one
layer by layer. That's the secret. Okay.
But is that the only way to do it? Like, can't you just like make all this one color, all this one color, all this one color? That's interesting, because when they say there's billions,
that would be very challenging to do, and it's not practical.
I can see that I should really observe more when you're doing it with one hand. But how do you, with one hand, you're not actually looking at it. At some point, you're not. Like, how can you? What do you can't feel it?
Yeah, so there are certain points in the cube where I don't have to look. So if I were to start solving this right now, I can look at, what move I have to do. So I'll do that right now. I'll look, and then I can look, at the camera, and I did my moves.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's terrific. So I want to show you this video on how a Rubik's Cube can help you play the piano, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Play a Rubik's Cube. Not play with it, but play it like a piano. That question doesn't make a lot of sense at first, but an abstract mathematical field called group theory holds the answer, if you'll bear with me.
Check this out. You'll like this.
Is a particular collection of elements. That might be a set of integers, the face of a Rubik's Cube, or anything, so long as they follow 4 specific rules, or axioms. Axiom 1. All group operations must be closed or restricted to only group elements. So in our square, for any operation you do, like turn it one way or the other, you'll still wind up with an element of the group.
What do you think of that?
Axiom 2.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Put
Yeah.
parentheses when we're doing a single group
I'm not
operation,
musically
we
inclined
still
though,
get the
so I'm
same
not going to
result.
know how this
In
associates
other
the
words,
piano, if
we
I'm
turn
being
our
honest.
square right 2 times,
Well,
right once,
I love music,
that's the
and
same as
it's
once
really
and
interesting
twice.
how.
Or for numbers, 1 plus 2 is the same as 2 plus 1. Axiom 3. For every operation, there's an element of our group. It's called the identity. When we apply it to any other element in our group, we still get that element. So for both turning the square and adding integers, our identity here is 0. Not very exciting. Axiom 4. Every group element has an element called its inverse, also in the group. When the two are brought together using the group's addition operation, they result in the identity element, 0.
And it's mathematics.
So they can be thought of as canceling each other out. So that's all well and good, but what's the point of any of it? Well, when we get beyond these basic rules, some interesting properties emerge. For example, let's expand our square back into a full-fledged Rubik's Cube. This is still a group that satisfies all of our axioms, though now with considerably more elements and more operations. We can turn each row and column of each face. Each position is called a permutation, and the more elements a group has, the more possible permutations there are. A Rubik's Cube has more than 43 quintillion permutations, so trying to solve it randomly isn't going to work so well. However, using group theory, we can analyze the cube and determine a sequence of permutations that will result in a solution. And in fact, that's exactly what most solvers do, even using a group theory notation indicating turns. And it's not just good for puzzle solving. Group theory is deeply embedded in music as well. One way to visualize a chord is to write out all 12 musical notes and draw a square within them. We can start on any note, but let's use C since it's at the top. The resulting chord is called a diminished 7th chord. Now this chord is a group whose elements are these 4 notes. The operation we can perform on it is to shift the bottom note to the top. In music, that's called an inversion, and it's the equivalent of addition from earlier. Each inversion changes the sound of the chord, but it never stops being a C diminished 7th. In other words, it satisfies axiom 1. Composers use inversions to manipulate a sequence of chords and avoid a blocky, awkward-sounding progression. On a musical staff, an inversion looks like this, but we can also overlay it onto our square and get this. So, if you were to cover your entire Rubik's Cube with notes such that every face of the solved cube is a harmonious chord, you could express the solution as a chord progression that gradually moves from discordance to harmony, and play the Rubik's Cube, if that's your thing.
And to map it to a Rubik's Cube is just fascinating. I'd love to actually see that practically made. I'll have to reach out to a programmer friend of mine and see if you can do that.
It's good because almost anything can be used musically. I've seen people play the violin using a pen instead of a bowl. That's why I wanted you on the podcast. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like, what do you do when you're not solving cubes? Is it still teaching math to the children? What's the youngest that you?
So the youngest I've taught to solve a Rubik's Cube is right around 5 years old. But I have worked at math festivals where you teach kids of all ages, and you get, sometimes kids as young as like 3 running around, and they're just encountering all sorts of puzzles, not just Rubik's Cubes, but other fun things. But when I'm not solving Rubik's Cubes, I have other hobbies for my reptiles, and just things like that. I usually, and video games. I like to use video games to try to learn different languages by switching them into a different language. Seriously?
So what languages do you know?
So I am conversational in French. My sister-in-law is from Belgium and inspired me to want to learn French. And then I've been trying to poke around with some other languages like, Chinese and Norwegian. Unfortunately, it's harder to switch video games to those, but it's just for fun. It makes me feel like I'm being more productive to do it that way instead of just playing a game.
Can you use the Rubik's Cube to help you learn the language?
I've never considered it, if I'm being honest. I've never thought to put those two things together.
So what language do you think is easier? And compare a language that you tried to learn to a Rubik's Cube. Which one would be harder to solve? Which one would be harder to learn?
Well, I guess if I wanted to kind of map a Rubik's Cube to a language, I would probably want to use it to conjugate verbs. If I'm thinking of the different endings to a verb and the different pronouns used, I would imagine putting the pronouns here, the root of the verb here, and then the conjugations here. That would make sense to me.
That's amazing. Wow.
But I don't actually use it. That's just me. Yeah, I just came up with that, like right now in this podcast. So.
Yeah. Hey, no problem. No problem. Excellent. But yeah, I hope that your desire. I hope that your desire to learn Rubik's Cube doesn't end up. We wake up in the morning like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I don't think it would ever be that way. I definitely take breaks, where I'll still do my teaching and my work, but I might not sit down and solve Rubik's Cubes for fun. I go through phases when I want to do that, but I don't think I'd ever lose interest or forget how to do it.
Have you exceeded the 3 point? You said it was 3.74.
3.47. So
3.47.
No.
Have you beat it yet?
No. My best time at home is I think it's 4 seconds. And my best time in competition is 7 seconds, but I don't think I'd ever get world record. I'd have to get so lucky, but I'm happy with what I've done.
Do you know the name of the person who has the world record?
Yu Shengdu.
Nobody's beat his record?
No. It's been that way for a few years now. I'm sure someone will come along and beat it, but as of right now, it stands.
Are you on the Rubik's official website?
I am on the World Cube Association. I'm not on the Rubik's website, though.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Actually, I was following you, and I don't want to say stalking you, but following you, all your wonderful accomplishments with Rubik's Cube, and just thinking, this would be perfect, because I bet you anything you can use the Rubik's Cube for music, and I was correct.
I personally could, but I am sure there are plenty of brilliant musicians and cubers out there who could definitely combine those two things.
Yeah.
But me, no.
That's how you do it?
To do
All the
yeah, to
bottom
do the
stuff?
bottom layer, then the middle layer, then the top layer. Yep, that's the secret.
But this may be the bottom layer, but this is the bottom layer too. So how do you differentiate between the bottom?
So when you start solving it, just define one to be the bottom layer. So you might choose the green if green's your favorite color, and you might just decide to solve that. And if you do, great, that's totally fine. And then you can solve the middle layer relative to the green layer. So if green was facing down, so making it the bottom layer, then these would be the middle pieces, these ones right here. And then the blue would be the top layer relative to the green. But if you decided that, oh, no, I like red today, so I want to do it with red, then you would say that red is your bottom layer, and you would solve the middle layer relative to red. So that's how that works.
So if I were to do that, I'd just say, okay, this is the bottom, and I just do this. I wouldn't say this is bottom, and this is the bottom. I just deal with, okay, let's make this the bottom. So make all this. Doesn't matter what color you make all this?
You would have to choose whichever one matches the centerpiece. So if you're looking at the white,
orange, I would have to make the bottom orange.
All these white. If you're looking at this is blue and blue.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. So here's the blue. So I make all this blue.
Yep.
Okay, so what about this top layer here? What color would that have to be?
It'd still be blue. If you're looking at it, look at the centerpiece. The centerpiece right here tells you what color a face should be. Because those pieces don't move. The centerpieces never change. Goodness. That's one thing that you've got to realize.
I have never even realized that. Orange, make that orange. I didn't even thought of that. I could have beaten your record if I had just learned that 10, 12 years ago. That's awesome. How about this one though? You don't have a middle one.
Yeah, so you've got to make middle ones. So like on this cube, I've started making the middle one. So I've made this one yellow. And since this is yellow, if I look at my regular Rubik's Cube, what is opposite of yellow? If I turn this, the opposite would be white. So I made this one white because this one's white. And
no,
then
but
this
I'm
one
saying,
right here is,
what's the original colors here so I can follow that?
You just make it up. So if I mix up my cube, I'm going to start, I'll start by solving yellow. So I want to look for these yellow pieces, these yellow center pieces, which my camera's mirrored.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pointing to that one's yellow. So I'm going to put those together. And then I want to find the other two. And now that I've established that this is yellow, I know looking at my regular Rubik's Cube that
the opposite
blue would have to be, the opposite would be white. So I'd have to solve white right here, which I can go ahead and do that.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even realize that. So I just say if I want the middle to be blue, I just make these four blue and then make all this blue.
Yep. Well, no. You start off just by doing that. You start off just by doing the centerpieces.
So make all this blue, and can I say, okay, I'm going to make all this orange, and I'm going to make all this a color, and then
as long as it matches the regular Rubik's Cube. So that's what you want to look at. So if this is white right here, then the only ones that could be on these sides have to match this. So if I couldn't make one of these sides yellow, I'd have to make the top yellow.
So I know the one on the right is yellow. So what's the appropriate color on the left one?
You could go ahead and make it yellow if you wanted to. Yeah, that'd be a good starting point.
Which means that then I have to make sure that it's green on the other side.
Yep. Yeah.
So all these Rubik's Cubes follow that same pattern?
Yeah, most of them follow a standard color scheme, which is called the boy color scheme. And can you guess why?
Lighten me.
Blue, orange, yellow. Boy, blue, orange, yellow.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. So blue, orange, yellow. Okay, I've got to remember that. Wow.
And then the opposite of yellow is white, the opposite of green is blue, and then the opposite of red is orange. Well, I did that backwards.
But you got Rubik's cubes that don't even have those colors. Well, I mean, they do have those colors, but they have extra colors as well. How do you deal with that then?
You get used to it after a point. Something like the Megaminx has different shades. Like this has a purple and then kind of like this light purple and a pink. That just takes practice of getting used to it.
Wow. That's amazing. So you have another competition coming up this year?
There have been competitions happening, but no, I have not competed since 2019 because of COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go to one this year or maybe next year. We'll see, but nothing in the works yet for me.
But even a lot of sopranos, tenors, musicians, and others have done online video concerts. How come there's no online video Rubik's Cube competitions? Because all you're doing is say, okay, here's the Rubik's Cube, let's do it, you know? Right in front of the camera.
In 2020, there were some unofficial competitions done on the computer, but the reason why there will never be an official one, or at least I would be very surprised if there was, is because in a competition, you need to have someone else mix up your cube. So let's just say you were competing. I would be mixing up your cube over here, following a very specific algorithm that would be unique. And then I would give it to you and it would be under a cover. I'm just using my hands in this instance. And then you'd get to look at it for a few seconds and then you'd start solving it. There's no way to do that in a virtual setting.
You mean they don't? You mean if you mix it up yourself, they don't trust you when you do that? They think you're doing it in a way to make it solvable?
Well, it's because they want it to be fair. So, you'd get the same scramble and everyone else in your group would for that round. So you'd get the same one. And then when it was my turn to compete, you'd be mixing up my cube, hypothetically. And then I'd be getting the same scramble as all the people in my group. And it's just because, I could mix my cube up and make it, be 5 moves away if I wanted to and solve it super fast. But doing it based on the computer scramble, which I'll show you what that kind of looks like. I'll pull up a timer once this comes up. Do you see that scramble algorithm? So that tells me how to mix it up. And that is random. That is as random as we're going to get.
What?
Yeah. So it tells me what to do. So if I'll solve this real quick.
There's an algorithm to a mixing up algorithm? Really? I thought it was just a random thing.
It's different every time. That's the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and use this algorithm to mix it up.
Can you explain the algorithm?
All right. And then if I were to, we can look at a picture here and it shows me that I did it correctly. The picture is really small here, but do you see how those colors match?
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
But then if I let's just say I start the timer and then I stop it, the scramble algorithm is going to be different. And this is for practicing at home. But in a competition, it would be you do averages of 5. So you do 5 solves and you would get 5 different scrambles.
What if I keep this up and I find out that I have solved it in 3.01 seconds? How would I prove that? You'd
have to go to a competition. That would be the only way to get it to be an official record. You can't just film yourself at home.
Could I just, film myself at home and then have the timer and then do it and then show, here's the video?
Nope, it wouldn't count because, like if I'm mixing it up myself, you could argue that when I did that just now, I could have, subconsciously know how to do some moves backwards, or I could have looked at it for too long, or any number of things. It's got to be in an official competition.
My dad loved mathematics, and there's always this thing with, he would feel the back of our heads and feel this bump, and he said, you got a math bump. Apparently mathematicians have this bump on the back of their head. So he would have said, come here, Sydney. Let me feel if you have a math bump on the back there.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Do you? Well, we're half Dutch. I think it might be a Dutch thing. I don't know. But do you use mathematics in every day of your life, or is there a time when you just want to be a 23-year-old girl who's just doing 23-year-old things, hanging out with guys and stuff like that? Whatever. Is it?
I mean, I certainly don't use math in everything I do day to day. I just happen to enjoy a lot of puzzles. But there are certainly times when I'll just sit down and watch a TV show. I don't need to be doing anything math related, so it doesn't consume me that much.
How do you separate the mathematical genius SirWaffle to the regular everyday girl SirWaffle or Sydney? Are you Sydney at all, or are you SirWaffle all the time? How do you separate the two?
Well, I am definitely Sydney at some times. When I'm teaching and performing and doing all of that, I try to wear attire that makes me feel like, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. It doesn't always have to be a suit, but it's just like I'm working.
I try to dress like the other thing.
Then
got this vest and everything.
I always try to keep it work from one room. I don't like, work. I don't like answer emails from my bed or anything like that. So that's how I separate those two. I think it's an important distinction to make, whether you're a teacher, a performer, a grocery store worker, a doctor, any of that. I think it's important to separate your professional and personal. So,
do your brother, sister, if you have one, sister-in-law, nephews and nieces, or whatever, I don't know much about your family, your parents, are they interested in your endeavor, or do they just no, that's your thing, you do that,
So I actually met my sister-in-law through the Rubik's Cube. She can solve the cube, I'd say probably in about 40 seconds. I'm being generous, but that's fine, I'll be generous.
Wow. What, really?
Yes.
So she's as good as you then, huh?
No. I solve it in about 10 seconds. She about 30 seconds. We met through the Rubik's Cube, just kind of through the community. And then my brother knows how to solve a Rubik's Cube. He can solve it in about a minute. He learned a couple of years after I did, probably because I was nagging him to learn, probably out of interest.
And then they met.
Yeah, they met through me. My sister-in-law came from Belgium to visit me, and then met my brother.
Yeah, wow. And then they got married, and now she's related to you. Do you have competitions with each other? Okay, ready, go.
No, they don't really do it that much. They don't have as much interest. If I visit my brother and if I hand him a mixed cube, he'll solve it, then hand it back to me to mix it, but that's about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that at you.
That's okay. I'm going to throw this one at you.
Oh.
You catch it? Virtually, 3D. Yeah, I was going to say, so I'm going to ask you, what's with the bow tie and the vest and the red shirt? Where did you adopt that from?
Well, I prefer bow ties over neckties. Why not? And then, the vest and the dress shirt just make me feel comfortable. If I had a jacket, it would be a little bit too heavy right now. On Full Us, I wore a purple dress shirt, but I thought for this occasion I would wear red. I have several different colors, though. I just like the best look.
I had the Rubik's Cube when I was younger. Oh, what about the smaller one? Do you have one of those?
A 2x2?
How do you solve that with being so small?
Well, I don't know if you're speaking about a mini Rubik's Cube, because this is a Rubik's Cube, but smaller.
No, the mini one, which is so small, can fit on the top of your thumb.
I don't have anything like that, but you just solve it very slowly, turning it just a little bit at a time.
You never seen that? Because I like miniature things, and I've actually seen a Rubik's Cube which is so small. Like, you should get one of those and time yourself, because somebody's going to say, okay, Sydney, here's a challenge, and then hand you a small one. You're going to be like, Chris was right. I should have learned. Now, I used to be able to juggle tennis balls, and I'm probably, with one hand, I'm probably able to juggle these. So, but that's why I say, like, I'm also a magician, and I don't know if I can do much any magic tricks with a Rubik's Cube, unless I like rip out maybe the middle and put like a card in there, and then have someone take a Rubik's Cube and mix it all up, and your card is the 2 clubs, and then rip that out and say, here you go. Pull it out. That's great. Well, Sydney, that's awesome. I guess you're friends with a lot of cubers?
Yeah, I'd say I am definitely acquaintances with quite a few of them. I have friends I've met through the cube, but we don't necessarily talk about the Rubik's Cube all the time. But I do like the fact that the Rubik's Cube has allowed me to be able to meet so many people from, literally around the world, because of how universal of a hobby it is.
So this is awesome. Yeah, I'll probably just, now that I know your secret, I'm going to try to see if I can solve this one first using your whole, so the color is white, make that all white, and then the color is blue, make all that blue. And then I'm going to be challenged with this one, and I'm going to see if I can beat that 3.47 from that. Wow. How am I good? If I could do that, I wonder how I could, what am I going to contact the guy? Hey, I beat your score, buddy.
Now, if you get to that point, then go to a Rubik's Cube competition.
Yeah.
They would welcome you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I was going to say Sydney. Thank you very much, SirWaffle. I appreciate this coming on my podcast. I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable because there's a lot of things I wanted to ask you. I'm thinking we're going to end this. We're showing your episode of Fool Us, if you don't mind.
People say it takes about 10,000 hours to master something, and I've spent over 25,000 hours practicing the cube. I got my first cube in my Christmas stocking when I was 14. It took me hours to solve the cube for the first time. About 3 months later, I got down to about 20 seconds. I wanted nothing but to be faster. I can solve a 3x3 cube in under 9 seconds on average. I was the first female in the entire world to solve a 6x6 cube blindfolded. I can solve a cube with my feet, with my elbows, or underwater, with just one breath. I personally own about 400 different twisty puzzles of all different shapes and sizes and difficulty. For the past several years, my full-time job has been teaching the cube. I've lectured at places like Stanford and Berkeley. I've been working on writing a book on twisty puzzles, so I just wanted to take my actual skill and turn it into magic. The trick I'm doing tonight is unlike any other cube magic. It's taken years to be able to perfect. Penn and Teller, tonight I'm gonna try to twist your mind like never before.
Excellent. You said it took you years to learn. How do you make that 2 appear in there? Is that what took you so many years to learn?
Yeah, I mean, that was just the years of cubing that I had done, enabling me to be able to do that. Because, I mean, right now, I'm putting a 2 on this cube while speaking to you. And that, I mean, I don't think you could just wake up and do that one day. So, even if I had come up with the idea for this trick, if I didn't already know the cube, it would have been impossible. So, that's what took me years to learn.
Penn and Teller said that they know how you did that, but do they really?
I trust that they know how I did it.
You mean, wow. I think it was the how it's a card force. I think they were saying that's how they all magicians know how card force works. I don't think they meant like we know how you put that 2 in the middle of the Rubik's Cube.
No, it wasn't a force. It could have been any card, and they know how I knew what card it was. So, wow.
Okay. Did you meet them beforehand? Are they nice?
Because of COVID, there was no real meet and greet.
During COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
But you were like, you weren't social distancing from Allison Hannigan.
No, but everyone in the production had constant COVID tests and that sort of thing. But as soon as we were done filming, I had to put a mask right back on and all that. So they wanted to minimize the risk in that way.
Too bad you didn't get a chance to see Penn and Teller because actually he speaks. I saw him speaking, but he gave an explanation why he doesn't speak. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this. We're going to
Okay.
edit this. We're going to edit this. And thank you very much, Sydney Weaver, world's 9 champion gold speed cuber, who should have a trophy that has like a gold Rubik's cube on it. You know, like the Oscars, have it where the Oscars holding up a Rubik's cube. Why not? It can exist.
That'd be
Thank you
awesome if it did.
Thank you very much, Sydney. I really appreciate this, SirWaffle. And okay, SirWaffle, goodbye. Let's wave here. And have a wonderful weekend and happy Easter.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too.
You too.